Yesterday evening, we started this topic of prayers of Queen Kunti, and some of you were with us, some of you were not. I think it's good to do a little background where prayers of Queen Kunti fit into the rest of Shrimad Bhagavatam. This prayers of Queen Kunti comes in Canto 1, and it's the 8th chapter, and the 7th chapter that precedes this one is the description of something we're going to discuss this evening, the description of Narada Muni visiting Vyasadeva after Vyasadeva had completed compiling all of the Vedas from a sound form to a written form, because Veda Vyas has a capacity to see past, present, and future perfectly. Trikala Gya. And he looked into the future and saw that in this coming age, people would have very short memories. And people with very short memories, when they hear something, they don't remember it. And if they hear it again and again and again and again and again, then maybe they'll remember it, but even still, short memory. Therefore, he took it upon himself to gather all the sound vibrations of the Vedas, divide them into 4, and so forth and so on, and wrote the summary of them all in Vedanta Sutra, and sat back to see how did it go. And he felt despondent, and he was surprised about where's that emotion coming from. And he pondered and pondered, and he didn't get an answer. And at the right time, Narada Muni just then arrived, and they had some discussion. And he said, Narada said to Vyas, everything that you've written is just fine. However, you've given inordinate emphasis to fruitive activities, because a major part of the Vedas has to do with procedures and teachings, etc., of karmakanda, or how to perform different functions so that one can get piety, so that one can get elevation to a heavenly planet, and so forth. So too much. It's not wrong, it's just too much. And insufficient is the explanation in terms of the personality of Godhead and the purpose behind all of those rituals is not just to get to a higher destination or greater opulence or prestige and so forth and so on, but to revive one's original consciousness. That's the real purpose. And the original consciousness has full connection with the source of everything, the Supreme Person. So he instructed, we're going to be discussing this evening, he instructed Vyas to sit in a trance of meditation, and based upon what he would experience in that trance of meditation, compose one literature that's just glorifying the personality of Godhead. So that's what Shrimad Bhagavatam is. It includes many, many, many things. It's an encyclopedia of many things. But the focus is on the personality of Godhead as was instructed by Narada, and therefore is called Bhagavat Purana. Bhagavat is in relation to Bhagavan. So it's descriptions of Bhagavan in its different features and aspects, and everything comes from Bhagavan. So there, it includes everything. And that was the previous chapter. Now, if you're going to be Vyas and you're going to compile from A to Z, certainly in the very early stages, there's going to be some indication of the personality of Godhead, and it comes in the form of prayers of Queen Kunti. And because it's a Purana, there's some history involved. And the history is subsequent to the Kurukshetra battle, the Pandavas were victorious by Krishna's arrangement, and Yudhisthira was installed in the throne. Now this is in Canto 1, Chapter 8. Later, I'm going to allude to the fact that Shrimad Bhagavatam is not chronological. It's logical, but not chronological. And later, Canto 7, there's a discussion. At the time of the Rajasuya sacrifice, there's some discussion about different topics that happened before Canto 1, Chapter 8. So that's just a detail that's very logical, but not chronological, because the teachings in Canto 7 are more subtle and sophisticated and detailed. And here in Canto 1, Chapter 8, the scene is Yudhisthira has been installed as the emperor of the world. Krishna has, by their request, he stayed with them for some time to fulfill their desires for his association directly. Not just like a celebration time, but a personal exchange, loving exchange time. And then it's now time for Krishna to return to Dwarka. Sad for the people in Hastinapur, Krishna is going to leave. With great anticipation, the relatives in Dwarka, because they're of the same royal family, relatives in Dwarka have been experiencing much separation from Krishna. So they're looking forward to Krishna's return. So as the painting shows, it's very nice. There's a huge assembly seeing Krishna's departure. And Queen Kunti, because she has royal privileges, she's the mother of the new emperor, she is escorted right up to Krishna's chariot, as we see in the painting. There's Daruka ready to send the chariot forward. And there are persons wanting to hold the chariot from going forward. And Queen Kunti just pours out her heart to Krishna. Not only saying, please don't go, because that's what's in her heart. She wants him to stay. She doesn't exactly just say that. She says many, many things. We'll hear some of those things. But she's revealing truths about Krishna. So it's often said that Shrimad Bhagavatam is the graduate study of the undergraduate study. The undergraduate study meaning Bhagavad Gita. So in Bhagavad Gita, one of the verses in Bhagavad Gita is that Krishna is saying, for one who understands the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities doesn't take birth again in this world. Janma karma chame divyam evam yoveti tattvataha chaktva deham purnar janma na. No more birth and death. So that statement from Bhagavad Gita is now being expanded here, where Queen Kunti is giving transcendental teachings of Krishna's appearance and activities for the benefit of the audience, and also, one could say, for her own self-purification. Now, the very nature of sound vibration in relation to transcendence is two things. That sound vibration has a potency to cleanse away the coverings of ignorance, and simultaneously to awaken remembrance of what we have forgotten. That is, our eternal relationship with Krishna. She, Queen Kunti, has that knowledge. She has that purity, that means the potency. So hearing what Kunti's saying has a profound effect. So it's very nice to hear what Kunti says, because she reveals truths about Krishna that are beyond ordinary. And when we hear those sound vibrations, we may not immediately understand them, but it elevates consciousness beyond the ordinary, just by the very nature of that sound vibration. So we covered the first two verses, 18, 19. And now we're going to be discussing 20, 21, 22. They're grouped in a little cluster like this because there's some symmetry in the messages that are being presented. You see from the translation here, Kunti, is going to disclose the transcendental nature of Krishna's appearance. Again, referring to Bhagavad Gita, one who understands the transcendental nature of Krishna's appearance and activities doesn't take birth again. Punar Janma Na. So this is valuable. If we can understand what she's expressing, and she expresses what she expresses with profound humility, not just kind of cute humility, but profound humility. She's most qualified feeling the opposite. But that's part of her qualification is profound humility. So this is a recording, and we'll hear as you hear the Sanskrit chanted. You have to pause in between, and then there's a chorus, and then the verse again, and then the pause in between. So Tata Paramahansanam. And I hope the sound system works. I didn't check. Yes. Tata Paramahansanam Muninam Amalatmanam Bhakti Yoga Vidhanartam Katam Pashyema. One more time. Bhakti Yoga Vidhanartam Tata Paramahansanam Muninam Amalatmanam Bhakti Yoga Vidhanartam Katam Pashyam. You yourself descend to propagate the transcendental science of devotional service unto the hearts of the advanced transcendentalists and mental speculators who are purified by being able to discriminate between matter and spirit. How then can we women know you perfectly? Now she knows him perfectly, or almost perfectly, and she's speaking as if she's not understanding, but she's understanding. She's identifying some categories of very elevated personalities and who are on a spiritual path of one kind or another. Advanced transcendentalists, mental speculators, tapasvis, yogis, and persons engaged in spiritual practice, and they can't fully comprehend you So how a person's like me is supposed to understand you? No. As we go along, we'll see that she very much understands. How can we, women, hope to see you the object of bhakti for the omniscient, liberated sages? Commentary, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. I am hopeless as a woman. Can even the omniscient sages, Paramahamsas, who worship you with attraction for your sweet pastimes, being ignorant of truth about your pastimes, know the intricacies of your pastimes? That is expressed in this verse. It's expressions of humility. She has lots and lots of clarity, but she's speaking as if she doesn't have it. Amalatmanam refers to those who are freed from the contamination of the material gunas. Amala means pure or spotless. Atmanam, the soul that's free from the material modes. Liberated souls in this life. How can we see you who are the object of bhakti yoga practice? The verse has the phrase bhakti yoga vidanartam. For the Paramahamsas. That the Paramahamsas worship the Lord has been explained in the verse Atmaramascha Munayo. So this is Vishwanath's commentary. That verse from 7th chapter, part of the reason for expressing what's in the 7th chapter that comes before the 8th chapter, is when Narada instructs Vyas, you're feeling insufficient because you haven't properly, completely, insufficiently glorified the personality of Godhead, so sit in trance of meditation, and that which you realize should be the object of your next composition. And this verse that's being referenced here is from that section, his realizations. They go from 174 to 1710. So he, Vyas, is such a person. He's a Paramahamsa that has the characteristics that are being described. And as Vyas has that capacity, Kunti's saying, I don't have that capacity that Vyas has. So how am I to understand you? This is Srila Prabhupada in his commentary. The Lord is so kind that he does not show special favor only to one who is a great philosopher. He knows the sincerity of purpose. So, supposing somebody's a great philosopher, their purpose may be self-serving. They want attention to go to themselves, or something, or something, or something. It's not that they want the attention of themselves and others to go to the source of everything. So knowing the intention or purpose of a worshiper or practitioner, there's reciprocation. Reciprocation comes in the form of realization. This is a nice topic. Nice topic. One of the verses in Brahma Samhita, in relation to this particular point, is Yadrashi Yadrashi Shraddha Siddhi Bhavati Tadrashi. That it is translated to mean one's realization corresponds to one's faith. Very advanced persons, Kunti is one such very advanced person, and there's many others, very advanced persons. Their truths about Krishna are disclosed to them. We'll give an example. I like this example. In chapter 10 of Bhagavad Gita, the opening section, Krishna says, nobody knows me. The great sages, the yogis, the demigods, they don't know me. Why don't they know me? Because I existed before they existed. I'm paraphrasing Krishna's words. Because that which exists before you exist, you don't know. You can guess, perhaps, maybe, or theorize, but you can't know. I mean, know in the absolute sense of know, unless that which is the source of everything discloses what existed before you existed. And then you can know. Very simple. And then Krishna proceeds to give the 4 essential verses of Bhagavad Gita that the whole Bhagavad Gita expands from. Krishna discloses himself not according to one's intellectual capacities, etc. Krishna discloses himself, to one who is very sincere in their purpose to know him. And if it's 50%, then it's 50%. If it's 20%, it's 20%. And kind of it goes up and down a little bit in the course of passage of time. Krishna can disclose himself fully. Kunti has a characteristic that's essential for Krishna's reciprocation, and that's her humility. She's enthusiastic, but she's also very humble. She's so enthusiastic, you saw the painting, she wiggled her way through the crowd because she's the queen, or the mother of the king, even more. She has privileges. So she could get right up to Krishna's chariot and speak person to person. Very enthusiastic. And at the same time, although honored and with privileges, she's very humble, abjectly humble. Further, it says here, this is in Bhagavatam Sandarbha, Jiva Goswami comments on Krishna's descent, as it's mentioned in this verse 20. Why does the Supreme Personality Godhead come to this world? He comes so that embodied souls, Sharinam, may learn to fix their thoughts on his lotus feet, and, most importantly, so the devotees may taste the happiness of devotional service. Nice. Do it again. Why does Krishna come? What's the Janma Karma Chame Divyam? What's the Divyam purpose behind Krishna's coming, his Janma? He is eternally situated in the spiritual realm. He's eternally situated with eternally perfect souls, engaged in perfect loving exchanges. Why does he come here? It's a place where people are unpleasant and contaminated and so forth. Why does he bother to come? And the explanation is in this verse, but is further described. There are embodied souls that he has compassion for and a loving affection for also. And he wants to help them revive their memory. We have forgotten our eternal relation with Krishna. So Krishna comes and makes himself visible and knowable and perceivable even to people who are in a contaminated state. And in that exchange that Krishna may have with his eternal devotees who also may appear, eternally perfect devotees, Nitya Siddha devotees, may appear in this world also to display loving affairs, loving dealings. So we can get a sense of how do we do this? What's spiritual life like anyways? Krishna brings them. He dispatches them and they come. and engages in loving dealings with them. And while present, he attracts the hearts and the minds of souls who are forgetful. Nice. It's more than nice. So that was the first verse, text 20. That's Kunti saying all these elevated persons, so high, much higher than me, and they have difficulty understanding you. What about me? How will it be possible? What's possible, the answer is given in Bhagavad Gita. It's possible when there's disclosure. Then one can know. And otherwise one won't know. So she's disclosing on Krishna's behalf. Now the next two verses, they go well together. These are just simply names of Krishna. Vasudeva, Devaki Nandana, Nandagopa Kumaraya, Govinda. Just a little sharing as you hear this being recited. Long ago, I remember very clearly, like over 50 years ago, every day, 7 days of the week, we would go on Harinam Sankirtan, a whole group of devotees. And along with the Hare Krishna mantra, we learned these two verses, and people in the street didn't know what we were saying anyways. The Hare Krishna mantra, these two verses. But we would sing responsively this 21, 22, because it's just names. It's names of Krishna. And then go back to Hare Krishna mantra. It was meaningful in that it helped us. There we are. I remember very clearly on the 53rd and 5th Avenue, right by a big church, and right, in the corner, and chanting these songs or names of Krishna that Kunti was saying. And it had a very powerful effect for me personally, because it was connecting what we were doing, in addition to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to Shrimad Bhagavatam. And from Shrimad Bhagavatam, the prayers of Queen Kunti and the feelings that Queen Kunti has anticipating the impending separation from Krishna. And all of that was packed into going on Harinam Sankirtan in 5th Avenue and 50 years ago. So here's the verses, the first of them. Krishnaya Vasudeva Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopakumaraya Gaya Namaha Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nangopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Krishnaya Vasudeva Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopa Kumaraya Gaya Namaha. Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Let me therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto the Lord, who has become the son of Vasudeva, the pleasure of Devaki, the boy of Nanda and the other cowherd men of Vrindavan, and the enlivener of the cows and senses. Govindaya Namo Namaha. The painting is depicting Vasudeva under Krishna's instruction to do so, Vasudeva was told by Krishna, "You're worried, and Devaki are worried. Don't worry. I'll assume a childlike form as Devaki requested, and although we're in prison, the guards will fall asleep, and although the prison door is locked, the chain will fall off, and although it's raining at night in a big storm, I'll ensure that you'll be able to cross the Jamuna River. Go to the other side of the Jamuna River and place me, as you see in the painting here, by the side of Mother Yashoda. Leave me by the side of Mother Yashoda. She's asleep, having given birth to a female child. Bring that female child back across the river Jamuna. Place me by the side of Devaki. And when Kamsa comes to know the 8th child of Devaki has been born, he'll come and try to kill that female child. But he won't be able to kill the female child because she's my Yogamaya potency. And so the painting is just depicting that little portion. Vasudeva, is placing the Krishna by the side of Yashoda, and the female child is going to be taken. There's another painting connected with this. It's after Krishna grows up and Balaram is his elder brother. Elder brother in the sense that Balaram's mother, Rohini, was in the care of Nanda, and Balaram was born just some number of days before Krishna, so Krishna's elder brother, Balaram, are being taken care of very, very nicely by Nanda and Yashoda. So they acted, so to speak, as the foster parents of Vasudeva and Devaki, their child Vasudeva, Krishna. And musicians in the front and persons entertaining the boys, and loving dealings, abundance in the palace of Nanda Maharaj. So here's commentary glossing or summarizing the verse from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. I repeatedly offer respects to Krishna, the son of Vasudeva, who gave joy to Devaki, who was the child of Nanda and satisfier of the senses of the gopis. His commentary reads, among all the avatars, you are the best. Though all those who have prema are fortunate, my brother Vasudeva was most fortunate, since you selected him as your father. This is the significance of the word Vasudeva, son of Vasudeva. And your mother, endowed with even more prema, is most fortunate, for you made her more successful than all others by situating yourself in her womb alone. This is Kunti, because Vasudeva and Kunti are brother and sister, right? Is that right? Vasudeva and Kunti are brother and sister. So Kunti's offering these prayers. She's honoring her brother, but even more, she's honoring Devaki, because Devaki was carrying Krishna in her womb. Thus Kunti addresses Krishna as Devaki Nandana, he who gives joy to Devaki. And Nanda, endowed with more prema, is most fortunate. You let him alone experience the sweetness of your infant or Kumara pastimes. Meaning Vasudeva and Devaki didn't have that good fortune. But Nanda had good fortune, even greater than Devaki and Vasudeva. Yashoda, with abundant prema, is most fortunate. This will be explained in verse 31. So Vishwanath is looking ahead, and as our acharyas like to do, they take the message in its literal sense, but also look at it in a poetic sense, and churn the topic and churn the topic, and sweetness and more sweetness comes by their commentary. The pastimes of your Kaishora age have even more sweetness than the Kumara pastimes. Thus, Kunti addresses Krishna as Govinda. Govinda meaning one who gives pleasure to the cows. So his childhood pastimes are one thing, and his cowherd boy's pastimes are yet another thing. So Kunti is mentioning his Kumara pastimes as opposed to the childhood pastimes. Krishna got the name Govinda at the beginning of his Kaishora age, after he was bathed by the Surabhi cow. You take possession, or Vinda, of all the senses of all people. You know the pastime. Most of us in the room know the pastime. At the time of the lifting of Govardhan Hill, which is coming up very soon, the Govardhan Leela pastime, when Krishna lifted Govardhan Hill because Indra had sent forth torrents of rain, and Indra realized why Krishna had done this, because he was proud. And he came before Krishna along with a Surabhi cow, and the Surabhi cow had the opportunity to bathe Krishna with her milk. And Surabhi gave Krishna another name. She gave the name Govinda. The place where this pastime occurred is on the eastern side of Govardhan Hill, place called Govinda Kund, where the name was given. So that's what being referenced in this purport by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Here's a painting showing Surabhi bestowing milk, bathing Krishna with the milk from her milk bags, and Airavata, the elephant carrier, on the other side, the western side of Govardhan Hill, performing Abhishek of Krishna also, with the celestial waters carried in his trunk, Airavata, and Krishna with the cows. The enjoyers of this form of Krishna are not mentioned because of their extraordinary nature, the esoteric nature of this love, and the lack of qualification of others to taste it. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is a Rasika Bhakta. He sees things that those that aren't Rasika Bhaktas can't see, and he relishes and he enjoys expressing them. He is enjoying great satisfaction through Katha, the glorifications of Krishna. And those that become lovers of Krishna Katha become lovers of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, because he's very, very expert at churning sweetness from topics of Krishna and holding them up and looking at it different angles and moving on to the next one, the next one. He's a relisher of Krishna Katha. One more verse, again, flashback for me is on Sankirtan, Harinam Sankirtan, maybe 15 of us standing on a street corner in Manhattan, midday, with zillions of people going by, just singing these verses from Queen Kunti's prayers. It's a very nice memory. Nama Pankajana Pankaj
Paline Nama Pankajanetraya
Nama Pankajanabhaya Nama Pankajamaline Nama Pankajanetraya Namaste Pankajangraye.
Nama Pankajanabhaya Pankajamaline Nama Pankajanetraya
Nama Pankajanabhaya Pankajamaline Nama Pankajanetraya Namaste Pankajangraye. Translation. My respectful obeisances are unto you, O Lord, whose abdomen is marked with a depression like a lotus flower, who are always decorated with garlands of lotus flowers, whose glance is as cool as the lotus, and whose feet are engraved with lotuses. So it's poetic. It's this literary ornament where there's repeated consonant sound again and again and again. It's a alankara. It's a literary ornament for poetry. So she's a poet, or Vyasa's a poet, giving these nice words for her. Some of you are a little familiar with our temple in Sridham Mayapur. In the temple of Sridham Mayapur, there are two devotees, disciples of Prabhupada, that are the head pujari and his twin brother. I mean, years ago, I couldn't tell the difference between them, and as years passed, I started to be able to detect the difference between the two of them. Jananivas is one, and Pankajangri is the other. So this Pankajangri is right in the last line. Pankajangraye. So unto, one whose lotus feet are marked with lotuses. Here's the meaning of this panka. Ja means to generate or takes birth or rises from, and panka means mud. So a lotus, it arises from mud. Panka ja is a lotus. One of the meanings is it's a lotus. Prabhupada's words. If we see a lotus flower, we can immediately remember Krishna. Just like if you love your child, if you see any garment, a small ship, shoes, or any playthings, immediately remember your child. Oh, this is my child's shoes. This is my child's playthings. This is his garment. So, it is the custom of love. Now, I remember hearing Prabhupada say this for the first time, and my thoughts went to what was, I don't know how prevalent it is these days anymore, but years and years and years ago, it was a common thing that parents, would preserve their child's baby shoes. And they would tie, it was a thing, it was like a cultural cool thing. They would tie the little baby shoes one to the other and hang it on the rearview mirror of their car. So as they're driving their car, they're seeing their baby shoes. And as they're seeing the baby shoes, of course, whatever else is in the rearview mirror of the car, they're thinking of their little child. No, the little child may be, a young adult now. But the affection is awakened, aroused, just by seeing that article the baby shoes. And it's true. People will do that, something, and it brings back that memory, just like this little memory of our Harinam Sankirtan, just hearing these two verses. It's a nice memory. Very nice memory. And so seeing something in relation to Krishna, then we can see Krishna. So just like seeing a lotus flower. Here's some of the words of the verse. Nama Pankaja Nabhaya. Nabhaya is a navel. Krishna's navel is just like a lotus flower. From the navel of Krishna, meaning Garbhodakshay Vishnu, there was a stem of lotus flower. And from that lotus flower, Brahma came. And Brahma created this universe. This universe means so many planets, so many seas, mountains, and cities, motor cars. He didn't make motor cars. And everything. Within that lotus flower, the beginning is found. There's a nice painting of the lotus of Lord Brahma coming from the stem that came from the navel of Garbhodakshay Vishnu and the goddess of fortune at his lotus feet. So Kunti is remembering Krishna in this way. Nama Pankaja Maline. Maline means garland. Here is a garland. So Prabhupada is apparently speaking and pointing to the garland he was wearing. There's so many flowers. Krishna is not so poor that simply producing one lotus flower, he's finished. No. There is a garland of lotus flowers, big garland, as many lotus flowers as you want. This is God. And some nice paintings of Krishna with lotus flowers. Or Radharani offering flower garland to Krishna also. Of course, those don't look like lotuses, but that's still nice garland offered to Krishna. Two more. Nama Pankaja Netraya. Netraya. His eyes, Krishna's eyes are compared to the petals of a lotus flower. And some of you may know, I'm sure many of you know, from Brahma Samhita, Alola Chandrakala Sadvanamal Yavangshi. So this is a similar description of Krishna that has eyes shaped like lotus petals. And he's appreciated like that and remembered like that. And songs are sung about him in those ways. And finally, Namaste Pankajangraye, whose feet are engraved with lotuses. Here's a nice drawing of Krishna's lotus feet, or the markings at the bottom of Krishna's lotus feet. And notice on both right and the left foot, there's different markings, but both of them have lotus markings on his foot. So many other nice markings. The plow of Balaram, the club of Balaram on Krishna's lotus feet, and so forth. And here's Krishna's lotus feet, standing in his Tribhanga Lalitam posture. Last slide, and we're going to conclude. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in his commentary, writes, I am also counted among the fortunate, for you give happiness to my eyes, that's Kunti to Krishna. My eyes, receiving the sight of your navel garland, eyes and feet, become pleasantly cool. My eyes become pleasantly cool. She, Kunti, is a privileged person. Not only privileged, she can come right before Krishna at his chariot, but she can say all these things in a very personal way, in a very heartfelt way, And one can only imagine what is Krishna's feeling as he's hearing these words of his father's sister, his aunt, speaking these words. He's omniscient. At the same time, he's an enjoyer. So he's enjoying the position of having a mother, Devaki, and having a foster mother, Yashoda, and having an aunt, Kunti. All of they're in parental affection, but a lot of diversity. And Devaki's feelings, Yashoda's feelings, and Kunti's feelings. Later, as was already mentioned, Kunti is flabbergasted, or some word like that, about the kind of love that Mother Jasoda has. Because she, Kunti, understands Krishna as the personality of Godhead, who somehow has become her nephew. And Krishna likes treating Kunti like a superior. He comes before her and touches her feet and takes her blessings before he does something, asks permission. He enjoys that relationship with her. And the relationship with her, there's a conflict for her, in one sense, because she understands, you're the personality of Godhead. Why are you doing like this? And at the same time, she understands he's a relisher of rasa. So he's relishing that rasa with her as his superior because he's an enjoyer of rasa. And so he looks to her as his superior. Although she's looking to him, there's a bit of a conflict. She's looking to him as the personality of Godhead, who appeared as the son of her brother, and who, did these things and did those things. And the main groove that Kunti moves on is he's the personality of Godhead, the fulfiller of all desires. And so she has a desire. She has a conflicted desire. She wants him to not go. We'll hear this later. She wants him to not go. But she also knows that her father and all the relatives on her father's side, they're missing Krishna like anything. So if Krishna doesn't go and Krishna stays, they'll be sad. And if Krishna goes, she and those in Hastinapur will be sad. So because of family affection, she's torn between, her and her son's interest and those of her family members in Dwarka. She's conflicted. So one of her prayers, we'll hear, one of her prayers is, affection for a family member is quite natural. However, sometimes that family affection can be in conflict with another family affection. And so she's praying to Krishna, please remove the material portion of family affection. It's not take away family affection, but take away the material portion of family affection, where it's the affection is unto you only. And when the affection is outstandingly there in relation to Krishna, then there's no sadness of separation or parting, etc., etc., etc. We're going to hear something more about this at the temple program on Sunday. I have a plan. No, a materialist might say, you people, you're just wasting your time. Well, why are you doing all this? Okay, it's a weekend, it's a Saturday, but where's the enjoyment? What are you getting out of this, anyways? So, spiritual experience and spiritual happiness is far away from a materialist. But spiritual happiness is at the heart of the spiritualist. And because of that spiritual happiness, I don't know if you've noticed, but I've noticed, we spent almost an hour and the time just flew. At least those who are enjoying the topics of Krishna. It's like that. You know, the passage of time isn't arduous, it's joyful. And as one becomes progressively purified, then it can go on endlessly. It can go endlessly and endlessly, just like a nice kirtan, chanting and absorption and kirtan, and time just passes. We don't even know that time has passed. And it's quite different with something that's arduous. Waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. So it's certainly subjective because time is a unit. But the experience of time is going to be different. And when there's absorption in that which is spiritual, it moves towards the experience of the eternal. I'll say it again. Both forwards and backwards. They'll say it backwards. Many people who are really absorbed in their material affairs will say quite honestly, I don't have time. Maybe nice, but I don't have time. I'm really busy. So some of us get really busy too, you know, even in spiritual activities. But there should be so busy we don't have time for spiritual activity. On the other hand, the experience is those that develop and cultivate an interest in spiritual activity, there is time. And time is wasted doing frivolous things, or just our experience of time itself is very, very different in the spiritual arena. Prabhupada writes about this in Sri Ishopanishad. The time energy opens for those who are spiritually minded. You approach that which is of the realm of the eternal, and it closes for those that are in darkness or not in the light of transcendence, and they're kept really busy with fruitive activities. And there's no end to those fruitive activities. There's no real satisfaction. Whatever pleasure may come from the senses contacting a sense object, it's fleeting at best and not substantial. Anyway, time energy works differently for the spiritualist and for the materialist. And the happiness that one experiences approaches eternal happiness as spiritual activity and spiritual practice goes further. With purity, we get closer to eternity. Lacking purity, time becomes a trouble. Like money. You don't have enough time, you don't have enough money. And so you work hard so you have more money so you can have more time. But it doesn't work that way. It works the opposite. Anyway, Queen Kunti's prayers are very relishable, and we'll continue, I guess, tomorrow midday or something. No, the next day, Monday. I don't think we're going to finish this. The prayers are too many, and they're very nice. Let's see if there's some discussion. Queen Kunti's prayers.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Okay. I want to want to share a thought. I think is in verse 20, Queen Kunti first asked this question, how could I know you perfectly? How possible it is that for me to know you perfectly? And then in verse 21 and 22, she kind of respond to her own question
Yes.
by saying the Krishna that he knows, that she knows. In verse 21, she talks about the Krishna in terms of the personal relationship that
Yes.
she know, and in 22, she talks about the bodily feature of Krishna that Krishna she knows. That's
In text 22, she speaks of the which?
the bodily feature
Oh, okay.
of Krishna.
Okay.
The bodily feature of the Krishna that she knows. She kind of replied to her own question. It's interesting. And also you specifically make a reference to the quality of humility.
Yes.
That she
I put those, and keep going. As I put those two together, she asks a question as if she doesn't know, and that's an expression of her humility. And indeed, she does know, which is a manifestation of the reciprocation that Krishna gives her as a result of her humility. Go ahead. I interrupted. I shouldn't have interrupted.
No problem. Is I think humility in that context is important in the sense that humility brings out gratitude and appreciation, and gratitude then inspires attachment and devotion.
Yes. Yes. As it matures, gratitude goes to that attachment and wanting to serve the object of attachment naturally, not just dutifully, naturally. She just taking what you just said, she's got it, and she's, in one sense, nurturing our coming to that position also. Where just by, what do we know about Krishna? She knows about Krishna. She claims she doesn't, and then she reveals she does. So what do we know? We don't really know, like she knows. But by hearing and appreciating her appreciations, then her humility, and then in turn her attachment and her wishing to be in service to, also awaken in us. I mean, as there's a sequence in her, it awakens that same sequence in us, is my point. Just by hearing her devotional expressions. And supposing it doesn't happen that way, that sounds nice. Supposing it, my experience is, it's kind of flat. I don't experience all those things. And that has everything to do with our covered condition. By repeated hearing, with eagerness to understand Krishna, then slowly, those things will come, because that's the nature of spiritual sound. It cleanses and it awakens. Spiritual sound has that effect, both. Anything further? Okay. Mahamantra.
Guru Maharaj, until this verse, Queen Kunti was glorifying Krishna through his leelas and other devotees and his relationship with other devotees. Here she goes, I feel like full guns, like directly glorifying Krishna. Like burst of gratitude.
And what you're saying is similar to what she's saying, and then her personal experience of him.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. She is of a particular rasa that, as a superior or like a mother. And she also has knowledge of his transcendence, which is not part of the cognizance or the tools that Yasoda and Nanda have. They don't think like that. Although he displays, they don't process it the same way. So the point is, because of her makeup, she's experiencing love, and thus experiencing Krishna through that love in a particular way. That I'm making that comment because it's good that we're mindful as we're hearing different personalities speaking about Krishna, that he's the same one person, but there's different relationships according to their consciousness, and they're going to express their realizations according to their consciousness, which is diverse, which is quite natural, and it's sublime. She's obviously enjoying, and I think it's nice for us to enjoy how she's enjoying vicariously. Anyone else?
Please accept my humble obeisances, Guru
Hare
Maharaj.
Krishna.
This is regarding the reciprocation. I don't think I have many things that Krishna would feel obligated to reciprocate. So in that sense, I'm in trouble. So my question is whether there are examples of devotees who struggled and then improved their bank balance of reciprocation that might be responded to, or other instructions to look forward to some kind of, I don't know how to quantify it in terms of maybe milestones of accomplishment. I don't know if I'm putting it in the right frame.
Let me try to say back what I think you're asking, and you can guide me if I've understood your question properly or not. We're all living in this world. I'm living in this world, and I would like to get some indication from Krishna that he's pleased. So what are some benchmarks or some measurements that I can know that Krishna is pleased? What are some things I should be vigilant for to see that Krishna is being pleased with my efforts to serve him? That's your question?
Yes, Guru Maharaj.
Okay. Well, I like very much, principle-based, I like very much what Prabhupada said. This was specific about scholarship or being being perceived by others, at least, as an elevated spiritualist. But Krishna doesn't require that you're an elevated spiritualist, that you're a great philosopher or a great yogi or a great this or that. What Krishna's interested is their sincerity. And even the simplest thing, offered with sincerity, the operative principle here is offered with sincerity, Krishna is pleased. So now, look at, then we each of us can introspect. How sincere am I? And so we could understand Krishna's probably not so pleased. There's something, but could be, should be, much more than something. So the way in which Krishna indicates that he is pleased with any one of us, you or any one of us, is not necessarily some good fortune comes our way, as opposed to humdrum, or as opposed to misfortune comes our way. That's not that's not the benchmark. That some good fortune comes your way. My answer to your question has everything to do with sincerity, and that is the indication that Krishna is pleased will be through Guru Sadhu Shastra, and if I am aligned with, from not only in a mechanical way but in a devotional way, I'm aligned with Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, then I can know that Krishna will be pleased. Whether there's a sign for it, a star falls from the sky and lands in my living room or something like that. It's not, I need some sign. It's just the faith in that principle. And then at the heart level, the sense of being connected because Krishna is pleased. Then there's another, just responding to your question, then comes another phase. I could be, my bhakti is weak. My bhakti isn't strong what it could be, should be. So then it's like a feeling of insufficiency. Now, it could be true, but it could also just be an impetus to go the next step. So, in other words, the feeling of discomfort can be good because I need to extend myself further than what I've been extending myself to. The extent to which I'm extending myself. And it's not quantitative, it's qualitative. It's love. Here's another way of saying the same thing. How much am I at the center, and how much is Krishna at the center? And that's a criterion, for a benchmark for you to understand that Krishna is pleased. Because advanced bhakti, advanced consciousness, is he is the center. I'm acknowledging he is the center, and I'm no longer at the center. He's at the center. I'm a player. I'm part of this assembly of players, but he's at the center. And I'm not trying to put myself at the center to myself or to others. That's a benchmark. And it's really easy. I use the word bungee cord. You know what a bungee cord is? Bungee cord is those things that have these little hooks on the end and an elastic band in between. And you use them to fasten something. And as soon as you unfasten one end, it goes right back to, that's the bungee cord effect. So I may extend myself and extend myself and extend myself to make my best effort that Krishna is at the center. And as soon as I become complacent, I'm at the center again. That's the bungee cord effect. So it's not that I stop, but I am striving with humility, recognizing it's insufficient. That humility, insufficiency feeling is an impetus. It may be an uncomfortable feeling. Stay with it, because it'll help you go further to the point where it's spontaneous. Then it's no longer feeling insufficiency. It's Krishna's at the center. There's no limit. The sky's the limit. There's no limit. That's a benchmark. That's a benchmark of spontaneous devotion. Pouring out from the heart. That's like a nice benchmark. So we have a long way to go. And that's nice to know that we have a long way to go. Not discouraging. Here's another benchmark, and that's smaranam. Vishnu, the Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam. So it's a stage of bhakti where remembrance is a result of practice, and then there's a stage of remembrance where it's spontaneous. When it's spontaneous, supposing it happens in life, there's an obstacle. And where does the mind go when there's an obstacle? I gather my resources and muster up my intelligence to figure out how to deal with this obstacle. Or, while that natural sequence is going on, I'm reaching for Krishna. Thinking of instructions that I've heard from scripture, from Guru and Sadhu, and I'm remembering them as I'm going through the inventory of possible things I could do due to this obstacle. I'm relying on Krishna. Krishna Smarana, remembrance of Krishna. That's a benchmark. It's an internal benchmark. So if someone's not introspective, they're not going to notice much of those things. So it's a quality, it's a feature of the mode of goodness is that one is introspective. So while doing stuff, there's what's going on inside. You're conscious of what's going on inside, the consciousness that's driving your speech and behaviors. And that Krishna is to be pleased. That's the benchmark. It factored into, how you live your life. And then there's the bungee cord. Circumstances become more relaxed, so I become more relaxed. Resting on my laurels, as the saying goes. Becoming complacent. That's not a good benchmark. Anybody else? Do you have something?
All these prayers. When Kunti was praying to, first of all, Guru Maharaj, my humble obeisances.
When Kunti was making these prayers to Krishna.
Yes. So did she think there was a possibility that with all the veneration that Krishna will not go? Because that was the intention, that if I'm praying that I love you so much, I don't want you to go, and that person says...
There's two other sides to that one. And it's in her prayers. And in her prayers, there's herself, but she's a mother. She's a mother that has sons. And because of Krishna's presence, her son is now the emperor of the world. Job well done. My son is now the emperor of the world. It was rightfully, and now it's done. So there's her sons, and there's her father, and all of those family members that are in Dwarka. And she knows how they feel. She's not selfish. She's able to think out of her own zone, and they're missing him. So he should go because they're missing him, but he shouldn't go because my sons and me. So your question was, did she have in the back of her mind, maybe Krishna will just stay? That's your question. Now, at some point, Yudhishthira requests Krishna to stay a little longer, so Krishna stays a little longer. But he's going to return to Dwarka. They know it, and they're not expecting he's not going to return to Dwarka. Not just because that's his home, it's just that's his Leela. He's part of the Yadu dynasty. So he has his loving affection and services there as well. So I don't think she's thinking in the back of her mind, he's just going to stay here with us in Hastinapur. He'll make this his place. He came to install, to set, Dharma into the Dharma position. And my son is now rightfully the king, the emperor. She doesn't want him to go, but doesn't mean she wants him to forever stay. You have something, Mahamudra?
Guru Maharaj, when Yudhishthira Maharaj requests Krishna, then he stays like several months.
He stayed, however long he stayed for a while. But then he returned.
Yeah, yes, Guru Maharaj.
He's a loving person.
Yes.
And he reciprocates with the love of loving persons. He's at the same time, he's fully independent. He's not dependent. Because they love him in Dwarka too. He's not going to neglect them.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, last question. Online. Oh, let's hear.
These are two questions. One is, this question is from Arvind Prabhu. Following yesterday's class in Heranan, I have been pondering on your statement which emphasized the importance of redirecting our focus away from material problem solving and instead minimally. Enjoyment, especially during weekends, which often competes with my faith in the hearing process, is associating with devotees and frequently overrides my desire to engage in it. This conditional enjoyment sometimes involve actions against dharma, such as lust or eating out, waiting, watching sports or movies. I find myself caught in a frustrating cycle of falling down and trying to rise again. And enjoyment sometimes involve actions against dharma. And
so he's confessing. What's the question?
Yeah. And he is also saying, how do I increase higher taste in Krishna consciousness every day?
How to?
Yeah.
Abhyasa yoga yuktena chetasananyagamino. You continue when you get knocked over and you fall to the ground, you get up again. And however many times you get knocked over and you fall to the ground, you get up again. You continue to practice. And you practice in good association. And you practice according to the standards of Guru Sadhu Shastra. And if that faith will carry you to keep getting up and keep getting up and keep getting up every time you get knocked down. So you, Arvind, may be a little weaker than this fellow or that fellow or another fellow. That's okay. That's okay. Continue getting up from whatever and wherever the mind wanders, etc. So just abhyasa in good association with faith. Saying the same thing, Patanjali says that in his Yoga Sutras. So his simple definition of abhyasa in the Patanjali Yoga Sutras is the same thing I just said. So just do that. However many times, that many times. Next
question is from Arvind Prabhu. How Kunti got attraction, knowledge, bhakti towards Krishna?
Lifetimes and lifetimes. Just like the statement that Prabhupada liked to quote so much from Shukadev Goswami about the cowherd boys. Krita punya punja, lifetimes. Now, is Kunti a sadhana siddha or a nitya siddha? That's another question. My understanding is she's a nitya siddha. She's not. She didn't practice and become Kunti. She's an eternally perfect person. So how do eternally perfect persons become perfect? They don't become perfect. They're eternally perfect. And if it's sadhana, then it's lifetimes and lifetimes. Krita punya punja. That's how. If it's that category. And how many? It's meant that however many it takes, that's how many. Because the objective is very clear. I think we'll end and see. Did you bring some prasadam? Okay. When I left Chicago, they gave me some Mahaprasadam from Kishore Kishori. So I brought some of that with me. I'll distribute that. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.